good. And Kelsey, I don't know if you did it intentionally, but a couple minutes ago you said you were looking around at other people in the world and thinking like, man, they get to rest on Saturdays. Did you say that on purpose?
No, I didn't do that. But I didn't know this.
That is just an incredibly significant point and statement that your experience, this overwhelming like focus that the WMSCOG has on the Sabbath and their condemnation of people like me who don't think about it the same way. They're like, you don't keep the Sabbath, you don't keep the Sabbath. And then you being a member coming out of it saying, you didn't get to rest on Saturdays, and looking around at people wishing you could rest on Saturdays. And with this emphasis in the WMSCOG on obeying the fourth commandment, obeying the Sabbath, and you're telling me that your experience of the Sabbath was the opposite of rest.
Oh my God, you guys, like, let me tell you, I want to tell you my average Sabbath schedule, okay? Because this was
quick, 3 services.
It's a 3 services. That was the easy part of the Sabbath day, was the services. That was the easiest part. Because, I mean, this was my schedule for a long time, is that, you get to church, let's say the service was at 9 a.m., right? So I had to be at the church by 8 a.m., sometimes earlier if my group is cooking and we need to do some prep work beforehand. So get to church 8 a.m. Of course, you have to wear a suit. You have to have everything prepared. You have to have all your tithe money ready, because you're not allowed to go to the store to go get that. If you want like an energy drink, you have to have that prepared beforehand, because again, not allowed to go to the store. So I'm getting to church at 8 a.m. I'm ready. Any member that comes in, I need to greet them. I need to have all my tithe money and offerings in the envelopes. We go upstairs for the service, 8:30. We sit for 15 minutes for the new song starts, service time. Of course, we have to stay awake through the whole thing. And then 10 a.m. service is done. Then you have like a 10-minute break to use the restroom, whatever. And then you have to do your group meeting. And group meeting is like, oh my God, that's like an hour and a half. And it's the most boring thing. The most boring thing is because you have to repeat all of Mother's teachings. Everybody has to repeat Mother's teachings, which are 13 of them. And then you have to repeat fruits of the Holy Spirit. And then you have to share fragrances, which take forever, because I mean, it gets to the point where no one's got anything and someone says something and then somebody's like, oh, based off of that reminded me of this, and everybody's piggybacking off of each other, so that takes forever. And then we always had to read chapters out of Kim Ju Chol's books or An Sang Hong's books, and then we had to reveal fragrances from those. And then if there was time before lunch, we had to practice preaching. Like for each of the subjects that you see, not only in that book, but any of the sermon books, you have to get a certain amount of signatures before you can test. We do lunch. After lunch, more practice preaching or a video that you've seen like a million times. And everybody in my church, it was really small. So, I mean, there'd be like 12 of us cramped inside like a room no bigger than like a closet. It was hot.
A hot room.
Yeah, hot. Air conditioning never worked. It sucked. And then we have afternoon service. Another hour passes. And then after the service, more practice preaching. You don't necessarily get to choose who you want to practice preaching with. You're told who to practice with. You're not allowed to interact with anybody from any other group.
There's cameras everywhere.
Yes, there are cameras. At least in my church, there were cameras.
A lot of Zions.
Yeah, inside and out. And then more practice preaching, dinner time, more practice preaching, or sometimes the lower level course classes, and then evening service, and then after evening service, cleaning for an hour, and then if you're a leader, there's another like 30 minutes to an hour meeting based on who showed up, who didn't, whose faith is strong, who's not, and then you get to go home. So that was when I left. There were for a couple of years. Yes, for a couple of years in between the services, I had to take care of like 10 to 12 kids, most of whom were under the age of 10, and I had to take care of them the entire day. It was so hard. And I mean, if the kids didn't listen, I got in trouble for the kids not listening.
It hurts your health.
Well, and then they tell me how to discipline the kids, and then I discipline the kids. Like I say, don't do that, or don't sit with, if they, don't sit with this kid, you guys can't sit together and act right. Then the parents would get mad. The parents would complain to the church. Church would get mad at me. And I'm like, you told me to do this. And they said, well, you didn't do it right. It was awful. It was awful. You couldn't win. And it was like, there was me and some members who were the leaders. I mean, we would, after every single Sabbath, we would go home and we'd just be like, Saturday was by far the worst day of the week for me.
So would you say it was the most exhausting day of the week for you?
Oh, hands down.
The most restless day?
You leave home with time and get home with time.
Okay, so...
It was awful.
So I am
You'd
often
be there at 8 and get
asked,
home at 10?
10 would be a good time to get home.
One of the first things that, if you're a Christian, if you're anybody who's approached by this group, or for me, one of the most prominent primary things I hear on YouTube from WMSCOG members is accusations or questions like, why do you disobey the Sabbath? Why do you break the Sabbath? Or why don't you keep the fourth commandment? Or where in the Bible does it say to worship on Sunday and not on Saturday? And so I just want to honestly, sincerely ask you guys, where in the Bible does it say that Kelsey just described is what the Sabbath is about? Where in the Bible is the Sabbath about any of those things? And so my question would be, why do you guys break the Sabbath in that way? And your experience might be a little bit different than Kelsey's, but I think, again, if you're honest, your experience is very similar. And I think your experience of the Sabbath is not something that is promoting you to be restful, which is what the fourth commandment is all about. The commandment is to rest. The commandment of God on the fourth day isn't just to do some religious thing on Saturday. The commandment of God that goes back to Genesis, the creation, is to rest in God. And so where in the Bible does it say to do what Kelsey just described? And again, I'm asking you're asking me, where in the Bible does it say to keep Sabbath on Sunday? Which, again, I have to say this over and over. I don't keep Sabbath on Sunday. I don't think Sunday is the new Sabbath. That's a false assumption. But where in the Bible does it tell you to be restless on the Sabbath?